Have you ever stopped to think about why you speak the way you do? What does your voice really say about you? Could your tone, your accent, or even the words you choose actually determine how the world sees you? Ludwig Wittgenstein once wrote, "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." But maybe it goes even deeper. What if the way we speak doesn't just shape how others perceive us, but who we become? A voice isn't just sound. It carries a history, an identity, a sense of belonging. At the same time, it can be a passport that opens doors, or a barrier that keeps them shut. Think about how often people change their tone when talking to a boss, or soften their accent in a new setting. Those shifts aren't random. They're part of a social game in which our speech bends to invisible rules of acceptance and exclusion. The French philosopher Michel Foucault argued that language isn't merely a tool for communication. It's a battleground for power. The way we talk can open doors or quietly close them. Some voices are rewarded, others get pushed to the margins. Sociologist Pierre Bourdieu called this linguistic capital, the idea that speech styles can grant status or strip it away. And this starts astonishingly early. Research shows that infants, even before they can talk, already prefer voices similar to their caregivers. Children often choose friends more by accent than by looks. By adulthood, that instinct can harden into bias. People with different accents may be judged as less intelligent, less trustworthy, or less competent, even when they're saying the exact same words. Consider Manuel Fragante, a military veteran with an impeccable resume who lost a job opportunity simply because his Filipino accent made interviewers uncomfortable. He challenged the decision in court and lost. The ruling essentially said that rejecting an applicant for how they sound wasn't illegal. Fragante didn't lose for lack of qualifications. He lost because his voice, its sound, didn't fit what was socially preferred. What looks like a minor detail is often a quiet machine of exclusion and belonging. Jean-Paul Sartre said, "Hell is other people. Maybe the real hell is what other people do with our voices." Frantz Fanon, who studied the psychological effects of colonization, understood this well. One of the first attacks on a dominated culture is linguistic. Ban the native language, impose the colonizer's tongue, reshape accents, and identities begin to erode. Under South African apartheid, black students were forced to learn in Afrikaans, the language of the white minority. In 1976, thousands of students in Soweto rose up against that policy. The state's response was brutal, but the message was unmistakable. Language isn't a detail, it's identity, belonging, freedom. Spain under Franco tried to erase Catalan and Basque from public life. Yet people kept speaking in private, writing in secret, preserving their voices until those languages resurfaced as symbols of resistance and cultural pride. Resistance isn't only epic and public, it's also everyday and personal. In the United States, African-American vernacular English, often dismissed for generations, didn't disappear. It transformed into powerful expression across rap, literature, and film. Around the world, working-class slang and regional accents, once mocked as incorrect, have become badges of belonging, a way of saying, "I won't erase myself just to fit in." Judith Butler reminds us that identity isn't fixed, it's performed over and over. That means the way we speak isn't neutral, it's a choice that signals who we are and where we stand. Keeping your accent, your slang, your rhythm can be a statement. I know I'm expected to change, but I won't. Sometimes that refusal is its own kind of power. Meanwhile, the digital world is rewriting the rules. Marshall McLuhan said, "The medium is the message." Today, social media, memes, and short-form video don't just change what we say. They change how we say it. Twitter taught us to compress our thoughts into 280 characters. Texting made formal punctuation optional. TikTok and YouTube amplify regional accents because video carries authentic voices directly to millions, bypassing traditional gatekeepers. For the first time, someone from a rural town can talk philosophy with a thick hometown accent and reach the world. A recent immigrant can start a channel and earn more respect online than they might get in a job interview. New digital dialects are forming as languages, emojis, and slang blend in real time. But here's the paradox. Breaking old barriers can create new ones. Sociologist Zygmunt Bauman described our era as liquid modernity, everything in flux, old rules dissolving while new hierarchies appear. Online, those who master internet language, memes, in-jokes, platform tone, gain visibility. Those who don't may be left out. Algorithms add another twist. Platforms have been criticized for quietly favoring certain voices and downranking others, sometimes misreading Black or Latino speech as less comprehensible. So are we becoming more inclusive, or just inventing new forms of exclusion? In the end, as Friedrich Nietzsche said, there are no facts, only interpretations. Nothing shows that better than language. The same words can sound inspiring in one voice and suspect in another. Speech isn't just communication, it's an act of existence. So what about you? Does the way you speak bring you closer to people or push you away? If your voice were different, would you still be you? And here's the uncomfortable part. How free are we to sound like ourselves? Is identity something essential or a reflection of what others expect to hear? No one speaks the same way all the time. Our intonation, rhythm, even our vocabulary shifts with context and company. That's because language isn't just a tool. It's a social mirror reflecting our need to belong. Linguist Penelope Eckert, studying teens at the same high school, found that jocks talked differently from burnouts, even though they shared the same community. What changed wasn't their school, it was how they wanted to be seen. Adults do it too. The executive who lowers their pitch to project authority in a meeting, then relaxes their speech with friends. This constant adaptation ties back to Bourdieu's linguistic capital. Those who command the so-called standard style are more likely to be heard, respected, accepted. Those who deviate are more likely to be excluded, stereotyped, silenced. The problem is that the standard isn't neutral. It evolved to advantage some groups over others. Under apartheid, native African languages were pushed out of schools in favor of Afrikaans, not just to teach a language, but to enforce an identity. Franco's Spain tried to ban Catalan and Basque from public life. When a language is silenced, a people lose part of their story, their identity, their existence. Often, oppression is quieter than a ban. A migrant arrives and is judged the moment they speak. A child enters school and learns that the way their parents talk at home is wrong. These small moments teach, almost invisibly, that some voices are welcome and others are not. Butler's point about identity as performance comes back here. Speech is one of our main costumes. A student leaves home for college, returns with a different way of speaking, and it isn't just their voice that changed. It's their identity adjusting to fit a new world. This isn't usually a conscious decision. It runs deep in our desire to belong. What happens when the social mirror reflects an image we don't want to see? Linguistic prejudice is one of the most invisible and cruel forms of bias. Make a grammar mistake and you're labeled ignorant. Speak with a strong foreign accent and you're seen as less reliable. In theory, language shouldn't filter human worth. In practice, it often does. And yet, there is resistance. Communities long pushed aside reclaim their ways of speaking as affirmation. In the U.S., African American speech, once stigmatized, now shapes mainstream culture. Elsewhere, street slang and regional accents rejected for decades now carry pride and solidarity. The paradox remains: language connects us and divides us. As Wittgenstein suggested, language is a game, but who writes the rules? Who decides which accent is pleasant, which words are wrong, which style marks a person as less than? Bias shows up in high-stakes places. Studies suggest jurors and judges often find witnesses with foreign accents less credible than those with standard speech, even when their testimony is identical. The pattern repeats in job interviews, salary negotiations, even in how customers are treated in stores. Psychologist Catherine Kinsler ran a telling experiment. Young children saw identical images paired with different voices, one with a familiar local accent, one foreign. Over and over, kids preferred the familiar voice. That early preference, if left unexamined, can grow into real-world discrimination. Housing studies report similar patterns. People with non-standard accents face more obstacles renting apartments, even when their income and credit are the same as native speakers. Is that because they're harder to understand? Usually not. In one study, college students listened to the same lecture recording. Half were told the professor was a native speaker, half were told the professor was foreign. The group primed to think foreign reported more difficulty understanding, despite hearing the exact same audio. Often, it isn't language that blocks understanding. It's our expectation that someone will be hard to understand. These prejudices can hit children hardest. Kids who use regional dialects or informal expressions are corrected as if they're wrong rather than simply different. Over time, they learn that their original voice isn't welcome. They adopt a way of speaking that doesn't feel like theirs, while children from higher status groups see their speech celebrated as the right way to talk. Bourdieu called this symbolic violence. When one group's cultural norms become the only legitimate ones, and everyone else internalizes that hierarchy as natural. The result? Millions spend their lives sanding down their accents, hiding their speech, trying to sound like what society prefers. Why not try the opposite route, training our ears instead of forcing other people's tongues? If speech can exclude, it can also make us exist. What happens when someone refuses to change their voice to fit? When a community raises its own speech as a flag of identity? That's where language stops being just communication and becomes a battlefield. Fanon saw it clearly. Colonizers impose a language and teach the colonized to feel shame about their own. Reclaiming one's voice becomes revolutionary. In Soweto, students protested an imposed tongue. Under Franco, people safeguarded Catalan and Basque despite repression. Today, those languages aren't just alive. They are living emblems of resistance. Everyday resistance follows the same pattern. Aave turning from something to correct into a leading force in music and culture. Marginalized slang reinventing itself as a symbol of strength. Butler's view of identity as ongoing performance explains why. Keeping an accent, a cadence, a vocabulary can be a deliberate way of saying, I belong to myself. Which brings us back to the internet. For centuries, rules of proper speech were set by institutions, academies, schools, bureaucracies. Now who decides how we talk? Platforms do. Memes do. Creators do. What used to be wrong can become a trend overnight. What was marginal can enter pop culture by morning. The digital revolution is smashing old linguistic gatekeeping while maybe building new gates in different places. McLuhan's "The medium is the message" plays out everywhere. The character limit reshapes how we reason in public. Texting makes formality optional. Short video platforms amplify local voices that legacy media never would. A kid with a thick provincial accent can go viral. Explaining metaphysics, A newcomer can find an audience that hears them clearer than any HR department ever did. People mix languages on the fly, minting digital dialects that didn't exist a decade ago. Is this inclusion or a new hierarchy? Bauman's liquid modernity suggests both. The internet rewards those fluent in its codes. Those who aren't can feel locked out, and algorithms, designed to optimize engagement, can silently privilege certain sounds, cadences, and dialects. Yesterday's gatekeepers wore suits, today's wear code. So what does this mean for you? Does your voice draw people in or push them away? If how we speak shapes our future, who are we when we decide to speak the way we truly want? If identity is partly how others hear us, how much freedom do we have to sound like ourselves? Nietzsche's line echoes again. No facts, only interpretations. The same speech can inspire in one mouth and fall flat in another. Language is a field of struggle, an invisible filter deciding who belongs and who is pushed out. Some voices are amplified, others are muted. Some accents are praised, others are mocked. There's real power in those who keep their voice even when the world asks them to change it. There's courage in speaking as you are, knowing it might close certain doors, because identity isn't only adaptation, it's also authenticity. So ask yourself, do you speak to be heard or to be accepted? If your voice were different, would you still be you? Maybe this reflection doesn't end here. It keeps working on you in how you listen to yourself and how you listen to others. I once watched a friend completely change how he spoke the moment he walked into a job interview. His easy hometown expressions disappeared, his voice turned stiff, almost rehearsed. Later he said, "If I talked how I really talk, they wouldn't take me seriously." That stayed with me. It wasn't just a change in tone, it was a struggle over identity, belonging, acceptance. How many times do we all feel that pressure? To soften, to smooth, to mold our voice to fit the room. Maybe sometimes it's the room that should adjust to the plurality of voices, not the other way around. Before we part, a small ask of ourselves. Listen. Listen to the voices around you without rushing to judge. Listen beyond accents, beyond slang, beyond formality or the lack of it. Try to hear what people are actually trying to say. In the end, understanding others isn't just a matter of ears, it's a matter of empathy. If this made you think in a new way and you want more conversations like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one.